good morning. Today we are going to be going to Hallow-Fest, which is a conference, well, not a conference, a convention that I will be selling books at and speaking on 2 different panels. So I just wanted to vlog this experience. It is very early in the morning. We have to get all our stuff together for the Uber, which is coming in like 10 minutes. So yeah, lots going on. I'll be sure to try to take footage of everything. And until then, I guess just come along with me and keep on watching.
Being an author, craft career, and creativity panel. Here we have our 4 lovely authors to start us off. So if you don't mind introducing yourself, giving us a fun fact about yourselves. Make sure it's not incriminating. And is anybody here mandated reporter? Oh, no? Okay, we're good.
Technically, but I'm off duty.
Take off your glasses so you can't hear what we're saying.
Okay, my name is Laura Enright. I'm an author and speaker in the Chicago area. I'm trying to get back into the author part of it. Some clicks along the way. A fun fact for me, I think, would be back in the day when I attended some conventions, and I didn't know what to dress as for one of the parties. I made up a punk show, a show featuring 3 punk women, and my friends and I dressed as that, and everybody believed that there was actually a show in Britain featuring 3 punk women who were the Dead Punkheads. Because we did actually have a fake band called the Dead Punkheads, but we used it for that. So, but this was a time when you didn't have streaming and all that. You didn't have that, so it's like you had to. Well, if you were getting something, you had to get it on tape from England. If you had a friend in England. So that's my fun fact. There you go.
Hi there. My name is Cassidy Van Gundy, and I write scary and scary adjacent stories. And my fun fact is that I don't have any cartilage in my nose. It is very squishy, and I can flatten it if you want me to, but that's not good. I don't know.
Was that from birth or was that?
Yes, I did break my nose, but that's unrelated.
She can actually twist it upside down. It's something to see for sure. That is a fun fact.
Do you see what authors have to go through?
Hi, I am Sarah Noe. I am a supernatural sci-fi fantasy author and artist from LaPorte, Indiana. I guess my fun fact is I didn't know I was doing a panel today, so I'm very unprepared. And sleep deprived, so this is going to be fun.
Hi, I'm Marie Bunch. I do gothic horror, so more on the supernatural psychological side of the horror community. And I guess my fun fact is I'm fairly well traveled. I've driven through 34 US states and 2 Australian states.
Wow, amazing.
Okay, first question. It's going to be a cliche one. What first inspired you to become an author, and how did that journey begin?
So I've always been into reading and writing. It's always been something I've been passionate about. When I was very little, I had a very pronounced stutter that I worked through. It's fine now. But it's definitely carried me on and has given me a great foundation for writing, because that was how I found I was able to communicate more effectively when I was in school. So it's a passion of mine that I just kind of nursed and carried on throughout my adult life.
I did not plan on being an author at all as a kid. I was going to be a landscape architect, and that's actually what I went to college for. But I had some really inspirational English teachers in middle school and high school that got me into writing, and I started writing a novella and then a fantasy novel in high school, and then my series that is published now I started in college. And I made it about halfway through landscape architecture degree when I realized, yeah, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. So I did get the degree, but I don't do landscape architecture now. I am a full-time author and artist, doing events just about every weekend. So
I'm a combination of the two of you.
oh.
So, yeah. So I also had a developmental disability as a young one. I had to go to speech classes because I was too shy. I never talked to anybody, let alone my own parents. So I really had to learn how to talk to people and get over that. And one of the ways I found to connect with other people, the first time I made friends, I was giving them superhero backstories and powers, and all of a sudden I was the cool kid on the playground. So that kind of pivoted the love of storytelling and writing, and I did that for a very long time, and that was going to be the plan, but then I told myself I had to get a serious degree. So I got a degree in international studies and a master's degree in diplomacy, specifically internet diplomacy, and how governments communicate with each other online. And then I didn't get a career in that because I graduated in 2020 and everything shut down, including the State Department. So I write now. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. My thesis was great. It was called "Okay, Boomer Memes and Public Diplomacy Struggle to Stay Relevant in the Age of the Internet." So it was great. But anywho, I wrote during the pandemic. We found my love of writing, and now I'm here.
I was walking along the moors and a sky god spoke to me. No, I wish it was like that. No. It was, I just liked it. I really enjoyed it. I was always kind of a lonely kid, sort of, I guess. I was always on my own. Also, I came from kind of a rough family, like alcoholism and stuff. Meaner. But anyway, so it helped me get through that aspect of it, growing up with that. So, I enjoyed telling stories, and I would also often, just dream stuff in my mind. And then when I started actually writing, a lot of the times it might be a job, but I would be dreaming the stuff up in my mind. So it's like, I think that was kind of what drove me toward, because my other siblings never really got into it. We all read really well. My parents were very good about that. They were very into us getting to the library. But as far as like the writing aspect and the creative aspect, none of the other siblings got into it as much as I did. So I think that's what it was, just to help myself through it. And then I found I loved it and I couldn't stop doing it. My biggest problem is one of the reasons a lot of the writing went to the wayside was the last several years I've been working like 67 hours a week, 7 days a week, 1 day off a month. So that makes it really hard to write stuff, like when you're doing that and thinking about it like that. I did actually manage to write more books during that time. But the point is, I'm more like, I have a problem with finding the time to do it and think straight than getting a writer's block issue. And a lot of times, I used to work in libraries, and a lot of times during the libraries, I would come up with scenes and then write them down, as I'm doing the book drop or whatever, and then have to stitch them together later. And I actually found that kind of fun to do. So it's like there are ways you can kind of go around it and figure out ways to, go around any writer's block you might have. But yeah, I guess I've been pretty lucky in that regard.
Okay, I'm trying to remember the order of the two questions. Motivation, I think it can be very daunting to think about writing a whole book or a whole collection or a whole project. So it helps to break things down into small bites and maybe just focus on, let me finish this scene, let me finish this chapter, let me finish this thing. That way it's not as like soul crushing to think about the amount of work that you still need to do. So that's my advice. Do I get writer's block? Yes. I find it helps to kind of code switch. So if I'm stuck on something, I'll switch to something else that's creative, but uses a different part of my brain. So I baked a lot. I also do other things. I had writer's block last Thursday, and I was so frustrated because I tend to get that when I'm ending a story or when I'm finishing something. I'm very, I get anxious about something being done for the first time. And I had writer's block so bad that I spent 2 hours making lists of Pokemon teams for famous people. And, and then after I did that for about 8 famous people, I was like, oh yes, the words are flowing. Yes, thank you. So whatever works for you.
Okay, I just really need to know one Pokemon team that you came up with.
Okay, so I really like the Korean boy band BTS. And so I made them all gym leaders. I did a different type of each one. And since there's only 7 members, I made the company Hive, the 8th gym leader. And I'll just do the first one. I thought it was Jin. He's one of my favorites. And I made him the water type trainer because of Super Tuna. He loves fishing. Except I gave him a very pretty team because he's also very pretty. So he has a Primarina. He has a Milotic. What else is on the team? Oh my god. He's got a Quaxley because of the hair action.
Of course.
Of course, yeah. I'm trying to remember everything. I have it written down in my diary, so I'm trying to remember every other person on the team. He has a Dodonzo, that's a newer Pokemon, because it's like a sushi chef, and he loves food, and he has his own line of ramen. And he knows a lot of other famous Korean chefs, which I also like because I watch Korean cooking shows. That was, how many? 4? What were the other 2? No? I don't know. Anyway, that's what I remember right now. But it helps to switch my brain.
I'm totally telling my sister about this.
Word, yes.
What to do with writer's block? Let's talk Pokemon teams.
Exactly. Literally, because I am a little bit neurodivergent, so I also have moments where I get stuck on something or fixate on something, and I have to literally get it out of my head and write it down. And this time it happened to be Pokemon teams. So
Love it. Thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with all of that and tend to also utilize some of those same techniques. I think for motivation, honestly, the hardest part is just setting aside the quiet time and tuning out the distractions, turning off the TV, doing whatever you need to do to get into your space.
Just one.
And then I don't think I really deal with writer's block too much, but I am a very chaotic writer, and I think that helps because I agree with everything you both have already said. I don't write chronologically. I write scenes as they pop into my head.
That's how I do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that helps because my very first novel I wrote in high school, I did write chronologically, and I had a hard time. I would hit a wall and be like, okay, I don't know how to progress from here. But doing it with just these scenes, I mean, I kind of describe it as like you've got all these puzzle pieces that kind of come together, and then over time they sort of settle into the timeline, and then you can kind of step back and see your story. But if I get stuck on one part, I just jump to another part. Or because my business is writing but also art, I will switch to, maybe maybe I'll switch to something art related. Maybe I'll write a post for my blog. Maybe I'll work on the cover image for the book instead of the actual writing for the book. So I kind of switch tasks, and I think that keeps me focused enough that I'm still being creative. And then when I am ready to go back to that part that kind of stumped me, it's usually easier to get the brain going and kind of work through it after setting it aside and doing something else for a little while.
So I agree with what everyone else has said. But how I do a lot of my writing is I do a lot of pre-writing too before I even get started. So I am an outliner, and like I will like have like maybe 4 or 5 really core scenes, and I'm like, all right, how do I bridge all these two? And I will write down essentially my roadmap as to how I'm going to connect all these scenes, and then I'll start writing. So I feel like I don't do a lot of my discovery on the page. I do a lot of my discovery before I actually start writing. And have my story kind of organized and played out in my head, and then I'll try to transcribe and relate what's in my head onto the page. Usually when I start getting stuck is when like something is maybe like too emotionally resonating with me, like on a topic or like a situation that the character is in. Like if I start feeling too emotionally overwhelmed and I know I gotta get through it, I'll like start shutting down. And then I'll do like some tangent researching. Like I think the last one I did was on glitter. And that was a rabbit hole I fell down for like 2.5 days. Never got finished.
Just like glitter.
Yeah. It just keeps pouring so much. So I'll like do stuff like that to distract me. And then because I also do linoleum printmaking, which is really fun to do, but is also a very like physical engagement of like art, since you're like removing and like shaving away, gouging away at things. I also find like doing that like physically repetitive motion also kind of helps like get me unstuck and like start working through things again.
So, which part of the writing process do you hate the most?
Oh, I like these questions.
Proofreading. I do my best proofreading after I hit send. It is my favorite thing to go back and be like, well, that's published now. I gotta wait 3 days.
You're like proofread like 5 times and then you do the 6th time like, how the hell did I miss that?
Yeah. So I hate that. That's not my favorite. So that's mine.
Yeah, I'd say editing, proofreading. I'm currently proofreading my latest manuscript, and yeah, I like the writing part better than the editing part.
Same. I would just tack onto that because I self-published. The formatting part, the back end, no. Organization is not my forte, but thankfully I am married to a software engineer whose brain is perfect for that. So we're a golden duo.
Free labor.
All right.
Labor with benefits.
Yeah, I gotta, it's the, you know what, it's the mechanical part of it, and that's what a lot of people gotta, hi baby, did I turn you off by name? Hi baby, it's the mechanical part of it. Like, you know, a lot of people have to understand when they're gonna get into writing. If you do wanna publish or self-publish, you're gonna have to deal with, there's a whole other half to it, so that you have this glorious, you know, throw of thought and creativity, and then you have to sit down and do the part of it. It's along those lines too, is after this book is published, it's like a whole other job. It's like the marketing, the sales, the things like that. That's one of the things that kind of, part of me likes it. I like to do talks. I'm doing a talk in Gray's Lake Library actually on vampires too. I kind of like to do the talks on these books, but by the same token, trying to find out, you know, what stores to put them in. Contact the stores, contact this person, do this. It can be quite a grind, but it can sometimes be fun if you meet new people and get fun with it. So like I said, I like the talks of it. So it's like, cool, I'm going to do some talks. But anyway.
I feel like this question is really fun, okay? How would you handle fan fiction based on your book?
Ooh, I thought of that.
Are we suing? Are we suing?
No, you know what? I can't really, because when I was younger, I used to write fan fiction for TV shows. And, you know, again, this is on the Wiz and Crow, so this is back in the 80s and 90s, but, you know, like Simon, there was a detective show called Simon and Simon, there was a bunch of shows that I really, really liked, so I used to write fan fiction, so I can't say too much. I mean, if they want to do it, it's up to them, you know, that's fine, that's an honor, actually. If somebody digs it enough to want to, you know, use my characters and play with them, that's fun. Just as long as you don't, I'm the head cheese here. I'm the one who's you know, steering the car on where this is going. But yeah, no, I would think that would be. I mean, it's along the lines too. If they say, hey, we want to make a TV show of your series, you know, that's a little more professional, but you're still going to have to eat some things on that. Like, okay, we can't have that scene, but it's my favorite scene. Now we can't have that scene, no time for it, you know. So, and the same with movies. So you're still gonna have to. But yeah, I'd be honored actually.
I will not sue you. Please do.
This is a video, so.
Yeah, it's documented. I will not do it. Because my first book, actually, I didn't have the confidence to really, I don't know, have a traditional writing journey. So when I was feeling insecure, I put my initial chapters of my first book on Wattpad. So I have much love for the Wattpad folks. Y'all are unhinged, and I love it. I love it. So please do. One of my biggest dreams ever is to have people who show up and cosplay as my characters. I believe fandom culture is a beautiful thing. It offers a place of belonging for folks. And if I create art that makes people feel that way, God, that's the dream. That's the dream. So yeah, please do.
So I actually have received fan fiction for my book.
And your thoughts on it?
And I was over the moon. That was like the ultimate badge of honor. Oh my God, somebody thought that this was good enough that they took my characters and did a little story. And I was so excited. And I kind of got reeled back in a little bit with that. So when when I was in college, I actually did minor in creative writing. And one of the people who had been in my college courses with me reached out to me privately, and she was like, hey, it's so amazing that you got fan fiction. I just, because I care about you, want to caution you on reading fan fiction, because that does potentially open the door if you are consuming fan fiction. You don't necessarily know who's writing it. Somebody, if they happen to have an idea that you were already planning to write about in your next book, if your book gets published, they technically could say, hey, they took this idea from me. This was from my fan fiction. So she said, you know, I would just recommend that you be cautious about it. So my personal policy now is I love fan fiction. I think it's amazing. I will not read it. And that's just to protect myself, to make sure that, you know, somebody can't potentially sue me down the road for saying, hey, I had that idea. I wrote it first before your book came out. So I love it, go for it, write it. I just personally cannot read it.
Good idea.
So I also, I wholeheartedly agree with everything that you just said, because I have seen, that kind of go sideways and play out in, a very, unfortunate way, where it goes from being a fan and being flattered to a lot of hurt feelings and a lot of, misplaced anger, and a lot of hurt feelings in the fandom community. So I kind of have the same policy. Granted, it has not happened to me. I would be honored if it happened, but I used to read fan fiction all the time. I used to actually create some fan fiction for Naruto. I was that kid in high school, so yeah, lots of friends, very popular. I was prom queen. It was great.
In my book.
So that's kind of where, as I started doing more professional writing and starting to get my work out there, I was just like, this is something that I think is fun and a beautiful experience and a beautiful place to connect people and start your writing career. But at a certain point, I was like, I have to put it down and kind of close the chapter and just kind of remember it from afar and very differently. So that's kind of my opinion. If you want to write it about any of my characters, I would love it. I think that would just be totally beautiful, but I won't be writing it.
Hi there. So this is day 2 of the vlog, day 2 of Hallow-Fest. I just finished getting ready, and this is my drip for today. Very drippy, if I do say so myself. Yesterday was a lot of fun. I sold some books and I spoke on my first ever panel and people laughed at my jokes. So in that regard, I am, yes, a winner. This is a smaller convention. This is my first ever like convention period, and I'm very honored to have been invited and to be considered a guest or a guest of honor. Let me show you my badge. Look at that. Wow. So yesterday was okay. Like the foot traffic was decent, but again, a lot smaller than some of the other events I've been to. But regardless of that, I did manage to sell like 4 books, so that's a good thing. And I noticed that most of the crowd here is very anime centered, and I too speak the language of the anime, and so I think that really helped me sell my books actually, because a lot of people were interested in Cursed Fate and Wicked Breed, and I don't get to talk about those books as much. Or I've noticed that like at other places, people are less interested in those when I do like horror specific events. So that was a lot of fun. I kind of used certain animes that I've seen to kind of explain like where the inspiration came from, because that book is heavily inspired by the animes I was watching at the time. I tell people it feels like Avatar: The Last Airbender, but a little bit grittier. And I also have like a lot of inspiration from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which is one of my favorite animes. So people can connect with that really easily, and I think more people were interested in those. This is a 2-a-day event, and from what I understand about conventions, some people save their money for Sunday to try to buy things before they leave so they don't have like too much to carry around while they're there for the weekend. So fingers crossed that that's the case. I'll keep you guys informed. I'm going to be doing another panel today. It is basically the same thing where people ask questions about writing, and I'm there with some other authors. You might have seen some footage of me talking before, but I'm doing that. So yeah, I'll keep you guys updated. But thanks for watching so far. I appreciate it. Vlog recap. Click. This is the Monday after Hallow-Fest. I look like poop. I feel like poop, and maybe I smell like poop. Who knows? Yeah, I am not showing up as my best self today because I don't know what it is. I feel so sick right now. I know that sometimes when I'm stressed out, I get like colds and stuff, and maybe that's one of those situations. Also, we're talking to people constantly, so maybe I got sick from that. I don't know. I For people who don't know, I have asthma, so sometimes I'm more susceptible to like colds and flus and shit just because of that. Or also like when you're stressed out and busy, sometimes your immune system takes a hit. So I woke up feeling very sniffly. I was sweating my butt off just trying to get ready, and I was feeling woozy just even counting my books or counting my stock this morning. Now I'm freezing. Now I have goosebumps. I took a cough drop, but now we're here. I'm in a sweatshirt. Before I was in my little crop top t-shirt and booty shorts, sweating my butt off, and then 2 minutes later, I'm freezing. So there's that. Thank you for letting me complain. Now let's talk about what you really want to know. How did I do? How did the event go? I had a lot of fun. I met some new people there. That was great. Network with a bunch of authors. You know the gig. So Hallow-Fest is like a newer small convention. This is their second year doing it. I was personally invited to be a guest at this event. A author I know, I think her pen name's R.E. Brunch, but her name's Rihanna. She and I did Slay the Lake together back in the spring, and she actually recommended me to be a guest or a featured author for this event. And so she put my name in front of the people organizing it, and they reached out to me, and they were like, "Hey, you want to come do this?" And I was like, "Neato!" And then they put me on their website, and I was like a featured guest. There were other authors there. I didn't realize that not all the authors were featured guests, and that I secured the bag. So there's that. That was awesome. But all of us authors were kind of put in this little back room in the hotel, just chilling by ourselves. The event was, I think, for a small convention, I had lower expectations, and I definitely think that we had like an okay amount of people show up. I think the problem is because we were put way back in the back, like at the end of this hallway. Some people might not have realized we were there. There wasn't a whole lot of signage to advertise for authors specifically. We were labeled as guests, or even on the board they didn't say author specifically. So sometimes I talked to folks and they were like, "Yeah, we didn't even know you were here. What the heck?" So I think that might have been like a lesson to be learned in like organization, which again is like an easy fix, right? I'm not upset about that. That's like an easy fix. The venue space also had like pretty much every event in like separate rooms, and I think that was just like them experimenting with the layout. I think they were at a different hotel previously, and now this hotel they were like trying to organize better and break everybody up into different conference rooms versus running a big central space. But as you saw before, they had all sorts of different types of activities. They had like a maid cafe, they had mermaids, they had like a little tavern area, they had an artist alley, they had vendors, and then they had us. There was karaoke and escape room, just a ton of stuff. And it was like a very nice family friendly environment. So that was cool. And for because initially we thought there was going to be a bigger turnout than there was, but for the turnout there was, I don't think I personally did bad in terms of selling books. This was also, I felt like, a more anime focused crowd. The people who went, like everybody was in cosplay, girl. Every single person I saw pretty much was in a cosplay of some form. And I was so impressed with their passion and dedication, because cosplay is like a whole lot to do. And some people had different cosplays for both days, but they were like the same person, like, as like a human, and then they had two different costumes, right? So that was really cool to see. Not everybody was in cosplay, but most people were, which I thought was really, really cool. Just from a nerdy me point, because like I used to go to I still go to conventions, but when I was younger, I went to conventions and I did some cosplay too. I don't do that anymore. I'm too old for that shit. I don't do that anymore. But when I was in my 20s, I did some cosplays and I had a fun time doing that. But I like seeing young people in cosplays. It makes me happy. But yeah, that was really, really neat. So let's get into the numbers. Look at my sticky note. I ended up selling 8 books over the 2 days. Normally for the bookish events I've done, I've pretty much averaged around 15 books in a day for an event. But with all things considered, those are normally either like book specific events or horror specific events. This was like a general convention, and it was my first convention ever vending at. So there was a big learning curve for sure, and like maybe the audience was different. Maybe they didn't necessarily come for books specifically. Likewise, I spoke on panels. This was baby's first panel experience. Oh my goodness. But I spoke on 2 panels over the course of the conventions, and they were pretty much the same thing, where it was just like asking authors questions about writing, publishing their books, all that kind of stuff. And it was a lot of fun. I like panels. I would continue to do panels into the future if I get the opportunity to. Have speaking on a panel was fun. So if you need an author for your panel, hit me up. I will do it. I will yap. I have no problem with that. So, yeah, this was a whole different kind of environment for me. So, I didn't really have a lot of expectations. I was like, you know what? We are just going there to collect data at this point. We are learning. So, in terms of sales, like, we're going to keep an open mind. So, I sold 8 books. 2 of them were Cursed Fate. A lot of people asked about that. A lot of people liked talking about that specifically. Like, I think they were more interested in fantasy stories. That's an important note for later. I had a lot of people take like bookmarks who might not have bought the books, but they took bookmarks or they took pictures of my sign with all my social media on it. So maybe those will convert in the future. Who knows? But I sold 2 copies of Cursed Fate. I sold 5 copies of Cursed Images, Scary Stories from a Child of the Internet. Again, that tends to be more and more popular work. And I actually had an increase in sales after my panel where I talked specifically about certain stories or characters in the book. I told people, they were, one of the questions was like, what is like the most ridiculous thing you've ever written, or like what's the thing that you wrote that you were like, who told you could do that? And I talked about my Murmur story. Murmur, if you don't know, is in this collection, and Murmur is about a girl who talks specifically in like text language, like the RAR XD type language that people used to write in or text in back in like the early 2000s, mid 2000s. Like part of the emo scene culture, and they would purposely spell things wrong but still make it sound like phonetically correct just to be cool and edgy. So she speaks entirely in that. Every other character speaks normally, but it's funny because they try to summon a demon, and it turns out the demon also speaks in that text language. I just wanted to play with this idea that like, yeah, like when we summon demons, it's all in Latin or something, and like, or a dead language. And I was thinking about like dead modern dead languages, and I was like, oh my god, this is a modern dead language. Nobody talks like this anymore, and it was so prevalent at the time. So hence that idea. It's a fun, oh damn, it's a funny concept, it's a funny idea. It's silly, goofy, and that's who I am. So people actually bought that book after they heard that, and they were like, hey, that's kind of interesting. So that was cool. But yeah, more people bought Cursed Images, the short story collection, on the second day than they did the first. So that I found interesting too. And then one person bought a copy of Cursed Images Social Media Madness, the sequel. And they were so sweet. They bought the first one on the first day. And then they came back the second day, bought the second one, and they told me, they're like, yeah, I started reading it last night in the hotel room, and I loved it so much that I have to buy the second edition too. And I was like, hell yeah. So shout out to you. I forget your name, but you were dressed as Momo, and we bonded because I love Apothecary Diaries. There's so many cute costumes, but that one was one of my favorites. So here's to you, Momo. I have a couple of goodies from the event that I got personally. One of them was given to me. I got this cool tote bag from Rihanna. Check this out, Slay the Lake tote bag. Woo! This is like the icon. They've used a lot of mermaid icons for this event. So I went to Slay the Lake in March, which was in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And now we're having a Slay the Lake in November that's going to take place in Tinley Park, just around the Chicago area. And that's going to be on November 15th. See, you can see it under her butt. And those are all the sponsors for the event. So I'm also going to be a featured author here. I'm going to be an author here. So you guys can come and see me if you want to see me in Chicago. There's that. I think you can also buy these totes. You can buy these totes at the event, or I think you can buy them online now. But when you buy them, the money goes to the LGBTQ Center of Lake County. So it's a good cause, and it's a good way to raise money for some queer kids. And still have a tote bag. So that's really cool. And that kind of stuff is so necessary now because the world is a very scary place for a lot of folks. So if you can help people out who need it, that'd be great. I also bought these earrings. I kind of showed them off in a little clip earlier, but they're Psyduck earrings. See? Can you see it? I have the other one here too, but I was just feeling lazy and I only grabbed one. Boop. I normally don't like resin jewelry. Like I just don't like buying resin stuff in general. But I liked how the idea of having Pokemon earrings that way if I go to like a nerdy event again, and I don't want to do full cosplay, I can still like show off fandom a little bit or like my fandom. Ah, turn around. Turn around. But I was debating between these and Slowpoke earrings. It was a very close call. But I ultimately just like the shape of the Psyduck ones better. And I also have a Psyduck hand cream in my purse. So I was like, well, it's matches. So we'll do that. Um, but yeah, I bought those earrings too. They were like $10, but they were really, really cute. Overall, I would like to do this event again next year. I think it was a good community building exercise. All the people there were like local, local artists, authors, entertainers, whatever, what have you. And I think at big conventions, people fly in from all over the place. And it's still good to support like small artists, but it feels nice when it's like I think you can consider like one of these artists like your neighbor almost. You know what I mean? Like we're all Midwestern, we're all in this area, and I like that community aspect too. And I really liked the audience that came to this event. I just felt that they were, like I said, really passionate. All the people who bought my books were super sweet. They were just so nice. And I don't know, I just got so much good vibes. Like people were asking me personal questions about like my books. Like there's this one guy in a bucket hat. He was so sweet. He was like, I saw your stuff earlier and I wanted to buy it, but you weren't here. And like I came back because I got tea and I came back and he was waiting for me. And he and this other person were, and they were both like, yeah, we saw your stuff earlier, but you weren't here, so we came back. And I think that meant that like maybe I was on a panel or something and I wasn't at the table. But he specifically was like, oh, is this based off of your personal experiences? And like they just ask poignant questions about the books, whereas like sometimes in other book events people I don't think are as inquisitive, believe it or not, even though they're like book fans. But he like really wanted to know like my thought process behind this. And I was like, yeah, I made cursed images when I was like really sad during the pandemic and I was really nostalgic and I missed certain things about like being back home or things from my childhood or, you know, um, things that brought me comfort. And I really wanted to play with this idea of like when comfort isn't comforting anymore. Or like, you know what I mean? So he was really sweet about it. And like there's so many people who are just so enthusiastic every time I told them a story. They're like, oh my God, that's such a fun idea. Or, and I just, as a creative, I really appreciate that. I appreciate at least people acting enthusiastic about that idea, even if they don't purchase, because, some of those people were really young and I get it. Like, you only have a certain budget when there's so many cool things. And I think a lot of people go to conventions for like artwork and like fan specific stuff. So when you pitch like an original idea or franchise or book, it may land, it may not. But yeah, no, but everybody was so sweet. So I would go just for that aspect again. And again, the people organizing it were super nice. And I didn't really like low key, I didn't have to pay a table fee because I was a featured guest. And that was so sweet of them to do. So I would I definitely would do it again, but I don't know if I I don't know if I have it in me to do like bigger conventions. We'll see. I did apply for Book Harvest in 2026 and I think I got into that, but I haven't fully decided if I should commit yet cuz like I haven't paid my fee yet and I'm still trying to decide if I have it in me to do really big conventions or really like multiple day conventions because let me tell you what, I was like not sleeping well or even like I was having health issues before the event and then I wasn't sleeping well during and now I'm like totally like crashing and I think that's just my body like trying to process maybe the excitement, maybe the nervousness, maybe the big emotions and and having difficulty doing so. But perhaps like if this were to become a more frequent thing and a more like normalized thing for me, maybe I wouldn't have that kind of physical reaction. Who knows? But yeah, I definitely would do this again. Just going to plug this event before I sign off. I will be doing another event this weekend. Woo! Called Spooky Frog. It's up in Milwaukee. I will put a graphic for it here. And I've been posting about it, but I'm just going to reiterate it for you. I'm going to be at another event called Spooky Frog. It is not just a book event, even though there'll be a ton of authors there, but I think it's more like spooky alternative type things. There's going to be other crafts people there, people who make jewelry, candles, who sell all sorts of things. But it's a pretty big event, and I was just told that the news is going to be there interviewing people, so that would be a great opportunity for me if I, got to be on TV. They have a podcast alongside, like a Spooky Frog podcast, and I will link their YouTube channel in the description below. But they also have a podcast that I will hopefully be featured on. It just has to deal with like whether or not the tech is appropriate, because they're going to be like recording at the event while people are selling at a certain amount of time. So it just depends on how many people express interest in being featured in an episode and whether or not the technology um, is receptive, I guess, or compliant. Wait, my brain's I might not be using the right word because my brain is fried, but you know what I mean. Whether the tech cooperates cooperates or not. But yeah, I'm very excited to that. So I'll be selling at Spooky Frog too. So if you're in Wisconsin, come on out, please. And I'm excited because it's my first year doing Spooky Frog. And again, am so thankful because I found myself in this little network, in this little community of authors here in the Midwest. And I don't know if I've talked about it on this channel, but I was really trying to find that back when I lived in Boston. For me, it just felt so impossible. It was really hard for me to find a sense of creative community in Boston. But now, since I moved to Chicago, it's like right at my doorstep. And I really love and appreciate all these people that have been so generous and given me these opportunities, and allowing for that stepping stone for me to get like even more opportunities in the future, right? So, like, I have Spooky Frog. Spooky Frog is affiliated with the people who just slay the lake, and this is my first time doing them. But because I've been going to these events, it's kind of like legitimized me a little bit more. And I got invited to do another event this month independently. They found me on Threads, and um, I don't know. It's been really nice to have this kind of boost in my career this way. So I just want to be so appreciative of the people who are in my corner right now and send them so much love. And if you can come out to these events, please do. I have Spooky Frog on the Saturday on the 18th. I have on the 24th, I'm going to Jacksonville, Illinois. To go to an event, going to a book event that's affiliated with our town bookstore, cute bookstore. And it's a smaller town, but I'm so excited to be at this like Halloween based event. And then we get a break, and then I will also be at Slay the Lake in November. So, woo, fall season, fall schedule. We're booked and busy, friends. So if you're interested in any of those, put them on your calendar. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please feel free to like it, comment something down below. Let me know if you're coming or not. You can share this video with a friend or subscribe to the channel. Please. That would help me out a lot. I also have a membership program if you're interested in that. If you're interested in supporting me just a little bit further, I really appreciate that. And until next time, thanks. Bye.